pride progress flags in an effort to be more inclusive of students. Unfortunately, taking down a flag which symbolizes acceptance and support does not send a message of inclusivity. As a trans sexual student myself, I personally understand the importance of having this flag openly displayed at schools. There have been multiple studies done showing that the suicide rates of LGBTQ plus students are consistently higher than their cisgender heterosexual peers. Questions, accusations, and interrogations revolving around the validity of the LGBTQ plus community as a whole heavily contributes to these horrifying rates. The Pride Progress flag is a validating symbol for any and all LGBTQ plus students who see it. When I walked into my teacher's class for the first time and saw their Pride Progress flag, I instantly felt welcomed, and I can clearly imagine how wonderful it could have been for me to see this in middle school. As somebody who was recently discovering and trying to figure out myself, like during that time, to see that and understand that I am valid as a human and that I deserve the chance to live as my most authentic self. My understanding of this debate around the Pride Progress flag is that on one hand, we are making more cisgender and heterosexual students comfortable in our district, and on the other, we're helping validate the existence of our LGBTQ plus students without ever directly having to confront them. And to me, that's more important than anything. We advocate and talk about acceptance, not just tolerance. And in this case, having those Pride Progress flags is a huge step in the right direction to actually having proper acceptance in this district. As a student, I can see it every single day. I see that there's a lot of lack of acceptance and even lack of tolerance, which is the bare minimum. And well, these flags are just a really, really important representation. Going back to what you were saying about the NEISD incident, kind of similarly, representation in literature is also hugely important and has been forever. And to take down hundreds of books that include LGBTQ plus and BIPOC authors is taking away that representation that the LGBTQ plus community so desperately needs and hasn't had ever. So that's also really important as just representation of the LGBTQ plus community, which could be taken away from us should we follow in the footsteps of NEISD. So I urge you to please not follow in their footsteps and to please take action with regards to the Pride Progress flags and making sure they stay up in these schools.
Thank you. Lisa Fox, you'll be our last speaker tonight.
Alright, I got a little thing for you to pass on. So I don't have to give the definitions of bullying and resilience. Okay, so I'm going to start off by a statement by one of our board members. We do so much on the process, and that's great, but we cannot practically identify and stop every threat that exists in the entire world. So sometimes all we can do is build up your defense. So I wonder what we can do for kids to build up a resiliency. We talk about a lot of how to handle it after it happens, but if we build kids up, what if we build up kids up internally? Then it doesn't, so when it does happen, they can handle it a little bit better and not hurt their self-esteem so much and cause the same damage. So I don't know what programs are out there. I would love to see what the Texas state does. I would love to see something more proactive in terms of building kids' resilience up so we can stop it before it happens. And as much as I agree with that statement that it's lovely to build our kids' confidence up, we still have to focus on the kids suffering right now because of bullying on our campuses. What are we talking about when we say resilience? Are we saying resilience, our kids should build resilience against other kids, or everything? When I looked up resilience, one of the keys to resilience is letting kids experience discomfort so that they can learn to work through it and develop their own problem-solving skills. But just last month, the junior school administration took down stickers/flags because it made some students discomfort. Why did we not teach those kids about resilience and working through their discomfort? Let us be honest here. Our numbers of bully reports is beyond low. And why? Because students don't trust us to do the right thing. How can we expect students to come forward and feel safe when we just last month took down something that said safe place? Instead of coming together as a community and learning one another and compromising, you chose one side over the other. We could have made a different safe place sign that made everyone feel included and safe. I hope that while we ask our children to be resilient, We also demand and help those children that do participate in bullying behavior and also get help. And also show and demonstrate bullying will result in harsh consequences. We need to stop saying kids will be kids, because that mindset is what led a group of boys to harass, attack, and sexually assault my son for over 7 to 8 minutes, while adults watch within walking distance. The same amount of time you allocate to 3 speakers here is an equivalent of how long my son felt he was in danger. So while we talk about resilience and being proactive, I ask this: will you consider teaching physical resilience, which is actually a thing, where it teaches you about self-defense? Because in my son's incident, I don't know what kind of preparation could have been made to overcome and feel okay with the position he was put into that day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes the citizens to be heard section of our agenda. To everyone, we are grateful for you for taking the time to speak tonight, and we value your input. We will now move on to item 4 of our agenda, items for presentation of possible action. First one is Board Goal 1, Student Learning in Progress, consideration of the 2022-2023 AHISD school calendar. Dr. Alfaro, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. As a preview, you've got 2 Franks on the docket tonight, so special treat. As the first Frank going, I'd like to take a moment to explain to the trustees as well as the general public our process for how we determine our calendar for the school calendar. And I forget, am I driving? Is that what the clicker's here? I'm driving myself. And then at the end, there's actually a consideration, a proposal for you all to approve a particular calendar. Now, the first thing is to understand that there are some parameters within which we have to operate. The big ones are 2. The state requires that students have at least 75,600 minutes of instruction. So however you build that in your school year, have at it. That's essentially what the school says. Now, the other parameter is that the teacher's contracts are 187 days. So we can't make them work longer without paying them more, and we can't actually have them work less than 187 days and still pay them, because that's what their contractual obligation is. So if you imagine kind of 2 overlapping schema, you have the 187 days in which to accomplish 75,600 days. Now, I mean minutes. Nice catch. Sorry, I got that clicking. I think it just takes a while. Now, we follow a similar process every year. Over the years, we have the same feedback, and so I just wanted to share with you all. I'm not going to read every bullet, but in general, these are the same kind of concerns we have, our feedback from other years that community suggested. So one of the most popular things amongst our community is to say, with that 75,600 minutes, let's sure try to get all that done before Memorial Day. That sure is helpful for folks. The other thing is that let's try as much as we can to have the end of the first semester fall prior to going on holiday break in December. I don't know if anybody remembers, but sometimes we've actually had to split it to where we came back and we still had a few days left in the first semester, and that's tough. There's a variety of other things. We've got parent conferences. That's unique to our district. We had early release days for that. It is important to note that spring is full of state-required testing as well as AP testing, and that tends to eat into instructional time. So it's helpful for us, if we can, to make the days in spring, make there be more days in spring, because you end up burning so much time doing testing. That way, fall and spring are essentially, in effect, even in terms of instruction. Now, we do, the suggestion from the community as well as staff is to try as much as we can to mirror spring break with both surrounding districts as well as surrounding colleges. Now, the thing that we were more mindful of this year than we've been in the past is trying to align spring break with daylight savings time. Those of you that experienced spring break this past year, you realize that we sprang forward right before we came back to work, and that was not pleasant, and I apologize for that. And we're gonna have to do that again this year, I think, unfortunately, for spring break. But we got wise and made that a consideration of our little subcommittee that I'll talk about here in a minute. Another new consideration was we experienced last year with COVID, we added some teacher work days to kind of ease some of the stress level of last year. And our experience was, while that's super helpful, as we end a 9 weeks grading period, it's helpful to have a teacher work day that's a student holiday, so teachers can kind of have time to have closure on the end of that 9 weeks before starting a new 9 weeks. So that's something we wanted to look at as we're developing this year's calendar. And then the last new consideration was that every year in October, when students have a holiday, we have a staff development day. And a lot of the other districts have just a full holiday, and so we've got feedback from staff saying, hey, can we try to just have a holiday on that day so we don't have to work? And so we wanted to look at that as well. Sorry, I'll just close this because I'm and so we developed 2 calendars to get feedback from the community. And it's important to know that every year we ask the community for feedback. We don't always have 2 different calendars. So quite often the last few years, we've only had 1 calendar, but we still ask the community for feedback. Now, I highlighted some key features on this calendar, and so that are different from this year. So there's that holiday for students and teachers in October. There's the idea that instead of doing 2 early release days for elementary parent conferences, what if we just did a student holiday and had parent conferences on 1 day so parents aren't having to juggle 2 days? We got some good feedback that I'll share with you in a minute about that. That's October 19th. Then the other thing I circled was a teacher workday / student holiday right after coming back from the winter break. That's kids get 1 extra day of break, but teachers get a chance to kind of get ready right before the start of the new 9 weeks. That's new. And then I highlighted on Wednesday, March 1st, that's another just kind of 1 day student holiday for elementary parent conferences. It's only a holiday for elementary kids, I should say. Secondary kids still go to school. And then you see on March the 13th, that's another teacher workday / student holiday so that they can get ready for the new 9 weeks coming back. And those are the only differences. That's why I only showed these 6 months. Now, notice where spring break is. So this is draft 1. That's really the difference between draft 1 and 2. Where does spring break fall? And so we'll see what the feedback is back. This is spring break early, i.e. we come back and we spring forward for daylight savings right into that week.
So they would basically have spring break and then that Monday off as well.
Correct. Now, this is what calendar 2 looks like. Not much different with the exception of spring break. And so this is what we put out to the community and said, the question was essentially, do you like draft 1, yes or no, or do you like draft 2? We didn't ask people to choose between the 2. You could say yes to both if you didn't care one way or the other.
What was the thought process that leaving the 6th holiday, not switching it to the 20th?
I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great question. I'm going to answer that because I think it's better in the context of the next slide, or a future slide. So here are the survey responses. Let's start with staff first. We had 174 staff responses, and most people did not like a spring break early. Most people did like spring break that second week. Now, an open-ended question we asked was, hey, if we end up doing a 1 student holiday for elementary kids for doing knockout parent conferences instead of 2 early release days, what were the pros and cons of that? And so a lot of folks said, well, yeah, there's a lot of pros because it's less hectic for students and parents instead of having 2 half days. Parents in general, it's helpful. Now, the other consideration is, and it's a consideration that applies to any parent conference week. It's a lot of work for teachers, regardless. And it's a valuable thing for us as a community, but we were just reminded for both parents and staff that it's a lot of work for teachers to prepare for that.
So I'd love us to push pause on that for a minute, because that is unique to our district. That we carve out and we have the expectation that every one of our elementary teachers meets with every one of our elementary parents. That is not a common practice in other places. And so, you know, there were years where we actually had 5 days of half-day release, and then we've kind of pared that down to protect instructional time. But I'm proud and grateful that we continue to carve out that time and that expectation that we meet with every single parent. So,
Very high participation with that. Now, we also asked, what are other things you want us to consider? And some of the common themes were aligning spring breaks with other districts. They love the idea of teacher work days, the staff does. And now this is a feedback that I'll show you, but that thing that Carrie brought up, they said, hey, why don't you consider not having the 9 weeks end that way? And so I'll show you how we talked about that. And so this was the parent-student community. And so there were 238 responses on this survey. There you go. And so it mirrored the employee response. Most people did not like spring break early, and most people liked spring break the second week, so that matched. Now, are you clicking on play? This takes a while. And so this is feedback from the community. It's essentially the same. Now, with the exception of they had the secondary thing about riding school, which is daycare after school hours. That's another benefit. But they did consider that because if we have a student holiday, they might not be working, so that's something to work through with them. Now, this is an interesting question that was brought up. They said, well, if we're going to do one day, why do it on a Wednesday? Can we move that to a Friday? And then they also gave feedback of saying, since we've gotten so good at doing Google Meets and stuff, that's been a really helpful option for parents who still want to do parent conferences, but can't physically come. We can still knock that out. So that's just good feedback for us. They had the same feedback. Some people actually like the early spring break, told us why, and some people like the second. You saw the numbers. Now here's a breakdown then when you compare them. You saw overwhelmingly both groups, that's employees as well as the community, prefer the second draft of the calendar, which is the spring break and second. So armed with that, I went to our district site-based team, which is called our District Education Advisory Council, and went through all of this process, and we talked about things. And I skipped over a step, which is we had a subgroup that actually talked about drafting those two drafts, and also gave me feedback about the wording in the survey. And so that subgroup was made up of parents and teachers on the DEAC, as well as 2 members of the PTO. We had an elementary PTO person and a secondary PTO person, and that was super helpful. We got to talk through to make sure that the survey was asking what we needed to hear. And so the recommendation coming out of DEAC to you all was that they wanted us to present draft 2 for consideration, with the caveat that they wanted us to reconsider where the third 9 weeks ends, reconsider that Monday student holiday at that time, and to reconsider where elementary parent conferences fall, i.e. they want us to look at that Friday. And so after looking at it, I talked to a variety of stakeholders, and here's where we fell. And I'm going to point out the differences, right? So this is the exact same draft 2 as you saw, with the following exception. There's a clicker on here. Look, right here, that parent conference date got moved to a Friday. So that's an elementary student holiday. Junior school and high school kids still have to come to school. I know it's a big gamble. Let's see if people pull their secondary kids out. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll look at the data and see. And then, this is the other difference here. So we move that from the Wednesday to the Friday. That's an elementary parent conference. Now, this is the one what Perry was pointing out. So now we've got spring break second, like everybody liked, and then we move that holiday for students, and it's a teacher work day, to the Monday after that. And then, so really, that 9 weeks has 4 more days than it did before. You know, big deal, it's worth the trade-off. And in my consultation with various teacher leaders, they're like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So this is what, I think that's it. This is what I'm asking the trustees to approve. If you approve it, I'll send out communication tomorrow to the staff, and then we'll have it in Monday mail when we come back in January, so parents know change.
I think the one, I have just one comment, I think it'll be interesting to kind of see how participation is with the Friday holiday. It'll be noticeable before not to do that. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I have the same thought, Carrie, and I don't know if it's something that's worth communicating to the community now, or it's just something to watch, but I mean, I appreciate all of you watching this year to see how conversation goes, but also, you know, sometimes as a community, you know, after 1 year, they think, well, we always get that Friday off, and I try to run a Friday off in March, you know, and then they feel like this holiday is taken away from them, I know this is just elementary, so, you know, I don't know if there's a way to forward, you know, communicate that in advance so that people understand we're gonna try it, or if maybe it's not worth that, but, I mean, for me, I do know, I mean, I think participation in the conference is more important than us getting one more Friday off, in my view, to y'all.
Yeah, my thought, there's 2 things. It's parent participation on parent conference day, and it's also attendance at secondary. I know that's kind of the second thing. So those are 2 data points we want to track. Dana, my sense is that if we go to President's Council, the next President's Council meeting, and make these points early, right? So make it now, early and then often, right? So again, as the year progresses, hopefully we get the word out through PTOs, that's really, we hope to maintain our high level of participation.
The only thing I would say is, it looks like a lot of days off in March. So there's 7 school days lost. I mean, the Friday is only elementary age, obviously,
Right.
but there's 7 non-instructional days in March, and there's 16 instructional days, so it's almost, it that's just a lot. Days off.
Are you suggesting we get rid of spring break?
Yes. That's what I mean.
I think that's
No, I
a,
don't know if there's a way to maybe move is there any reason that the March 3rd date has to be that to a Friday in March?
there's not. Other than, we try to time it after certain assessments are done, so you can have, like, there's certain things at the elementary level that they are fodder for conversation, and I think that might be maybe like mid-year assessments or something like that.
What's April?
Yeah, we're really here.
I only put, what was changes, so I don't have that. Well, I mean, we can certainly, if it's a big enough deal, put off adopting this until January and do more legwork. Or if you guys feel like, well, let's adopt this and see how it goes, we could do that too.
Any other questions? Frank?
I appreciate all the folks that have helped, like I said, the PTO people and the people at the EAC. It's really helpful. Everybody who replies to the survey, we read all the results. And so I want to thank everybody for doing that. It's super helpful.
Thanks for your effort, putting it together, being flexible. Do I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 AHISD school calendar? Stacy, do you have a second? Second. Eric? No. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, item B, board goal 7, fiscal and operational systems. Yes, that is. Consideration of resolution of the Alamo Heights ISD Board of Trustees to discontinue participation with TRS Act. And we've got Frank Stanich, who's going to lead us through our insurance talk.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. what I'm going to do is run you through the reasoning behind the recommendation that we are going to make to the board for our option for insurance for the next benefit year, which will start the 1st of September in 2022. So why are we making a change? We presently have 2 different plans that our employees can participate in. One is the TRS Active Care Plan, which we've traditionally had for the longest time. Last year before last, we were able to exploit a loophole, which allowed us to go out and find an alternative plan. And that alternative plan was able to save money for our employees. There's lower premiums, actually better options in some cases. So we were happy with having 2 different plans at the same time. But TRS came out through legislation this year, and Senate Bill 1444 mandated that districts could either keep TRS and go with no other plan, or if we chose to go with a different plan, then we had to leave TRS for 5 years. So even though it was a high-pressure situation, we felt like this was also an opportunity to provide a better plan with better options for our employees. And what it really comes down to is the cost and also the network that we have available for our staff. Under TRS, we would have been looking at the Blue Cross Blue Shield Texas network. Everyone knows Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's well recognized, but one consideration with the Blue Cross Blue Shield Texas network is that it's not a national network, and that could affect our folks when they're traveling. Not in a huge percentage of cases, but it is there. On the other hand, under the Texas School Health Benefit Plan, which we've had for the last year and a half, this, under the Aetna portion, covers roughly 95% of the same providers as under Blue Cross Blue Shield, plus we have a national network. So this would cover our people if they were traveling. The straight up Texas Schools Health Benefits Program Health Smart Network is also national coverage. And this portion of the Texas School Health Benefits Program offers the lowest premiums and also great options. We take a look at the Aetna network under the TSHPP, over 1.2 million participating doctors, 8,700 hospitals nationwide, and the way they achieve lower rates is by having strong negotiated discounts. The Health Smart Network, which is also part of the TSHPP, more than 478,000 providers, over 1 million unique locations across the United States, many also here in Texas, and all services beyond the initial primary care visit are accessed by a care coordinator. And that's how costs are lowered, because this is known as directed care, which means all of the procedures are pre-negotiated, which allows us to save money because we are directing our employees to those hospitals and providers for whom we have an agreement. I don't have my computer out right now, but what I want to do is just kind of share with you some numbers. I know that I've already provided these to you previously. With the TRS program, our employees would be paying roughly about 10 to 15% more in monthly premiums than with the TSHPP programs. Also, the TSHPP copay plan, which is extremely low, provides the lowest out-of-pocket costs, significantly lower than the TRS Active Care plans. We look at that type of cost savings, especially in this time of rising medical care, and we know that inflation is an issue. This is a big deal for our employees to be able to stretch their dollars as far as they will go. So we know TSHPP, through our research and through the numbers, offers more options than the TRS Active Care with significantly lower costs and premiums. The big unknown are the TRS insurance rates aren't going to be available till the spring. So we don't know how high they're going to go. Right now, we're estimating about a 10% increase, that's about market. And even with that 10% increase, that might be on the low side, we're still coming out far ahead on our monthly premiums. Another unknown is how many school districts are going to disenroll from the TRS Active Care, because the smaller that their pool gets, as more and more districts go with alternative plans, the more the premiums are going to go up for those who remain. So for all these reasons, we're going to recommend to the board tonight that you adopt the TS HVP. And that means that we would have to drop TRS. If you adopt the resolution this evening, we'll report this to TRS via email and through the member portal. We're required to do this by legislation. We'll also send out communication to our faculty and staff to let them know of your decision. Before we send out the email to all of our faculty and staff, we have 13 people who are under a legacy plan called Active Care 2, and we will have to explain to them specifically what the comparable options are under the TSHVP. Also, with directed care programs, there's a learning curve, so we're going to roll out an information campaign in the spring semester so that everyone who is new to the TSHVP will know how to access care. And that concludes my presentation. What questions do you have?
So Frank, I have one, and it just came to me. The slide, 1, 2 previous. The third bullet point. So does this really just impact those districts that were smart enough, thanks to like Frank Alfaro, who took advantage of the loophole by being a district of innovation? Like, is that really it, or is this kind of a one-time, like, hey, all school districts in Texas, you can either stay with TRS or you can leave. This is your one-time option.
So the option to lead starts with a district of innovation plan. And so the districts, once the word got out that a district could have an alternative healthcare plan by starting a district of innovation plan, if one wasn't already in place, a lot of them jumped on it. So this would be for the option to disenroll from TRS would be for anyone who has a DOI and can exploit that loophole in the DOI.
Do we have an idea of how many districts, there's what, roughly 1,000 school districts in Texas? Do we know how many are DOIs, just to kind of see what that percentage might be?
And I don't know that number, Mr. Hamilton, but I do have with me Russ Edwards, who administrates the TSHVP for the Financial Benefits Service, which is our third-party administrator and our vendor for benefits. I'll just ask Russ if he has any idea how many schools may qualify for the DOI.
There's, of the school districts, DOI districts in the state of the 1,050, as you mentioned, almost 900 are district of innovation districts because, you know, it gives you, the DOI was created to help with, you know, your calendar, you just went over start, stops, all that, to also align better with some charter schools or other things. So there's a lot of districts in the state that are DOI districts.
Okay. I just think that's a big point not to be missed, that if all 900 do leave TRS, that system's gonna crumble, and we don't need to be one of those districts left behind.
That's definitely true.
Thank you.
Well, and it's nice, I mean, having been on this board 5 years now, every year we've talked about TRS, and the conversation always was Hotel California. We got into it 20 years ago, and we weren't allowed to get out. The legislature, we'd ask the legislature to let us out. So this opening and a chance to get out, this is wonderful. And it did all start with a bit of exploiting that loophole, getting alternative discontinued participation with TRS Active Care.
So moved again.
Ryan moved, second. David, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thanks, Frank, on the work for this.
Oh, that's still on here. Okay, we are now going to move on to the consent agenda. These are items that are considered routine by the board or have been previously reviewed and discussed in prior meetings, and that we therefore enact with one motion. Is there anything any of the board members would like to remove from the consent agenda to consider as an item on the regular agenda? There being none, I'd like to mention before we vote that we've received $2,311.68 in donations. We always appreciate that. If there are no additional items to be pulled out, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I give this one to Lisa. Do I have a second? I'll go with Brian on the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we will now move on to our board member committee reports. We've got a report of the Alamo Heights School Foundation.
So I'm
Met
gonna,
yesterday.
I'm gonna take that, and, we had a great meeting yesterday. Just incredible momentum in that group, positive energy, around donor support. We did get to hear, an update around the teacher fund. Brooke Mevin and Sloan Thomas are the chairs for that fund. They're really excited about re-engaging the community in Heights huddles, where they host small group meetings in the homes, and they invite some of our staff members to come in, again, with just a push to support the teacher fund. And at this point, they have $150,000 already raised and an additional $70,000 committed in the Heroes for Heights program. They're also going to be teeing up a Show the Love campaign for February to really share love and committed pledges to support teachers throughout that month. And so the meeting ended with just an overview around the work of the Endowment Council. And so there's going to be some exciting news coming forward about what that's going to look like. Heather will be joining our morning meeting in January to give us an overview of some of their plans in the endowment campaign, but also some of the partnership work that we'll walk through with the naming rights next steps. So it was a great meeting.
District Design. Brian Hamilton.
Yes, and Dr. Alfaro, please be on call. If you remember from last month, there are 4 goals that the district design team is working on this year. Last meeting's focus was a project out by Corey Smith regarding, I think it's goal 4 technically, but it's the goal where we have the surveys that talk about how great the relationships are, or how great students and teachers at the elementary level think the relationships and the foster relationships are, and how that is, at least in numbers, not so great when it gets to the high school. I'm kind of butchering how that is, but remember, the numbers are really good at the elementary level, and they start tapering off. One of the goals is to look at that, of how can we better those numbers, how can we, on both the teachers and the kids, get those numbers up so that they feel better, more meaningful relationships are fostered at the secondary level. She did a great job speaking out about that. We then broke back into our small groups and continued to work towards all goals, all 4 goals. But I might, just for everyone listening, everyone here, can you reiterate, and I'm sorry, the other 3 goals? I just think it's important, like every month,
Yeah.
to talk about these.
Yes, so I'll start with the second goal, which we actually had a learning time, which was about our goal to become a district of character through character.org. Dr. Krishna Shinso gave a presentation about what that looks like. We did some learning around what Jimmy's, yeah, got it.
Portfolio.
Yeah, and so the fourth goal is about reviving this thing that we were really hitting at right before the pandemic, which was some kind of way to have a capstone project or work that encapsulates our profile of the learner as students kind of progress into their senior year. So Dan did a lot of research on it initially, and DMC did a lot of research, and we're just bringing that back. So that's our fourth and final goal. We'll be hearing from them in our next meeting in February.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, Dr. Moore.
Okay, we will now move on to section 7 of our agenda. Well, actually, we're going to pass it because there are no business recommendations for the month of December. Smooth sailing. All right. Section 8, calendar review. Dr. Bashara.
This calendar looks much more manageable than what we saw in December. So let's just celebrate that, right? Yes, there's some spaces on this calendar. So we will convene our GMP committee Wednesday, January 12th at 7 a.m. Tentatively, we are slated to host Culture Night. We're not, that's a wrong date, and that just happened yesterday. So most likely that will be held in March, April. So that is always a huge celebration that we traditionally have held in December. But this group is going to realign the efforts around the Day of the Child, and so we look forward to that in April. Friday, January 14th, and Saturday, January 15th, our school board will engage in the Schlechte Center School Board Conference in Georgetown. Another school foundation meeting on the 19th, a regular board meeting on the 20th, district design team the 21st. For Bryan, we host our learning walk on January 24th here at Woodridge. And then at the end of the month, we're looking forward to another Excel graduation like the one that we celebrated today. Any questions about calendar?
Okay, that ends the regular part of our agenda. Before we move into our next items, which will be done in executive session, we're going to take a short break before we enter into executive session as per Texas Government Code, Section 551.001. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Hey, Carlos, I'll come back and tell you kind of how it's going to go in a minute. I want to talk to these guys. Thank you. Is Lisa going to be with you, or it's just going to be you?
No, she's gonna be with me.
Okay.
I'm gonna speak.
Do you know where she is?
She should be here.
Okay, that's cool. We have a couple of things to do before we get to you, and so I have a place for you to wait over there. But you can wait until she comes back in.
All right.
Do you want to text her or something to have her come? That way we can have you. That way you can move all your stuff at one time.
Now, are y'all clear that during that session, it's in closed session, if you guys can't record anything?
Am I able to write?
Yeah, you can take notes, yeah, but you can't audio or video record at that time.
Okay, but will I receive any kind of copy or?
Well, they'll go over that at that time.
Okay.
But we do record it in case it goes to the TEA commissioner.
Okay.
But I think